Good morning. I want to welcome everybody to the next project conversation. Right now, we are about to go live with one of the most dynamic leaders in our country. Mayor Regina Wallace Jones is the mayor of East Palo Alto. She has been politically active for years, and she is the right leader for the right time right now. She is also part of the executive tech community. She was a Stanford graduate. She has a lot of ties to our area. She's also been politically active for so long that I really want to start getting her perspective on COVID, on the current protest, and where we're going. Thank you. Welcome, Mayor. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you.
So, one of the things I want to do is if you can give us a little background on how did you become the mayor of East Palo Alto? What was your journey there?
That's a good question. So I moved to East Palo Alto in 2002, and it was a few years after my husband and I got married, and we were moving further down the peninsula from Daly City because both of us were working in tech. And it was just really important to us to be a little bit closer to where we were working. The commute from Daly City was pretty substantial. It was taking its toll on us as a couple. So at the time, it was a hot real estate market. And we've been on a bunch of places and ultimately kept losing on all of our bids. And one day we were driving up the freeway, the 101 freeway, and we saw the sign about homes that were being built in East Palo Alto. My husband and I looked at each other and we said, well, that's our home. Like, that's where we went to church when we were in college. That's, in my case, where I got my hair done, where when I was a student, that's where we did all of our service. We had many friends in the city. And so it made it a very natural choice for us to explore purchasing our home. Between 2002 and now, which is 18 years, I hate to say it, but time has ticked on. I always have known that my journey was going to be a journey that was part tech, part policy. And so, you rightly introduced me as a Stanford grad, but a lot of people don't know that I am an engineer and I also have my master's in public policy. And I have always felt strongly that it was at the cross section of these two places where I was uniquely positioned to serve my community, serve the broader community, and serve the city. So it took me a while to get there. I was an organizer for President Obama's campaign. I was a big supporter of Senator Kamala Harris's campaign. I jumped on a lot of other campaigns to learn the mechanics of how to organize effectively. And then I kept living my life purposefully. And when I turned 44, now I'm 46, I decided that was my moment to exercise an aspiration against the city that I love. And I made a run for city council when I turned 44, and thankfully I won. And that's taken me to today as the mayor.
So, one of the things, and we've known each other for a few years, I remember when Hillary lost and all the vision of where we were going imploded, we had a very transparent conversation. And I think it galvanized you more to do policy work. I really love your story from Detroit. Can you please tell the people, because it always inspires me.
Yeah. So thank you for that. It was such a traumatic period in my life. My brain almost blocks it out. But for the broader community, and I see some lipstick on my teeth. Let me get that off. For the broader community, I had been, I was an employee at Facebook at the time that Senator Clinton was running for office. And I remember I was coming back from Nigeria. We were exploring an office on the continent, and also looking at where security needed to be of heightened interest. And I was the chief of staff to the chief security officer at the time. And I was flying back from Nigeria through France. And I got this call when I landed saying, Hillary needs you in Michigan. Can you go? And this was the weekend before Election Day. So there was not a lot of time in the, call for help. Can you make it happen? And I literally landed in San Francisco, flew out the following morning to Michigan, and I got to Michigan ready to roll up my sleeves. And I thought, having been the field organizer here in the Bay Area, having opened the office down in San Jose, which had, upwards of thousands of people that were in that office every day, calling and canvassing and shipping skills and talents into battleground states. I thought I was going to walk into a vibrant, bustling office in Detroit. And when I landed and got to the office, there were 7 people in the office. 7.
Wow.
This was on Monday before Election Day.
Wow.
And half of those 7 people were seniors. And they said to me, Regina, we can't be out in those streets. We can't outrun anybody in the streets. We are happy to serve coffee to people coming into the office. And I thought to myself, on the Monday before Election Day, there's no one coming into the office. That's not happening. She is out in the streets.
Yeah, you got to go out in the streets.
Got to get out in the streets. So, so the 4 remaining plus me, we had 1 car. We had 17 precincts. Wow. And exasperated, we pounded every bit of that pavement and covered every one of those 17 precincts. And the thing that was heartbreaking for me, there were 2 things that were heartbreaking for me. The first was the area had not been properly canvassed prior to election season. And we don't always understand what the purpose of canvassing is, but part of it is to validate, are the people here that we think are supposed to be here in this house, so that as we get towards Election Day, we actually know how to mobilize and get out a vote. Well, when you haven't canvassed a community, you don't know that people have left. You don't know that they moved away. You don't know, there's information that you don't know. And so for all of the canvassing that we were doing in 17 precincts, my recollection is about 40% of those homes were abandoned, which means we thought somebody was going to be there, and we're knocking on doors and they're not there. No one's there. The windows are cracked and busted. The doors are, wide open. Nobody lives there. And I remember saying when we got back that night, and it was late. I mean, it was dark when we got back. We went back to the office and we were waiting for the election to be called. And I was, thinking about all of the other states and thinking Michigan is a slam dunk because up until that point, Michigan had been polling for President Obama. I mean, for Senator Clinton, as strong as it had been for President Obama. So I thought this is a slam dunk. But when I got in that night, I knew we were in trouble, because I knew just in the 17 precincts that I had alone, that 40% of the people that were supposed to be there were not there, because we hadn't invested in knowing that they were there. And so as all of the states were getting called for a different candidate, dare I say his name, but as the name was getting called, there was finally this point where the commentator said the only way to victory is through Michigan.
Wow.
And I remember just sobbing at that point, because it was so clear to me that we had missed the mark in winning this state for that campaign. And you say it's a touching story for you, and I know you can feel all of the emotions that I had. Literally after that day, I laid in my bed for 60 days. I was winded, I was exhausted, I was tired, I was depressed. I just stopped everything and really was searching inside for, how do we move forward from here when you've given everything that you've got? How do you move forward from here? And now obviously it's, several years later, and gratefully we have figured out in some ways how to move forward. And I think we do all recognize the criticality of this pending election that is in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
But my perspective is it did give me some resolve about what it means to actually get out in the streets and talk to your neighbors about what matters to you. And it was that energy that fueled my energy to knock every door in the city of East Palo Alto, taking nothing for granted, because I was an unknown candidate. And I really wanted people to know who the unknown candidate was so that they can make a valid decision about my ability to help lead this city.
And we were there for the journey with you. So I know this thinking, and I want you to the reason I asked you to share that is there are a lot of people that feel sidelined right now. This movement that we're seeing, the Alanas, the young people are really in the streets, they're marching, and they're older people that have jobs, people that are a little more sophisticated, and they're trying to figure out how to engage. And I love the fact that you were engaged, disappointed, but then you went to a higher level and really recommitted. So I really wanted our viewers to hear that. I want to shift a little bit of a topic. You've been in Silicon Valley since your Stanford days, and I don't think people understand the trauma of being Black and professional in Silicon Valley. In your best and best way, can you explain to people what that trauma is? Because right now, I feel a lot of our counterparts, white, Asian, whoever, are leaning in on us to say, how do we do the next thing? And we're still traumatized. And I really want you to speak to that right now.
It's thank you for asking that question, because this moment has conjured up so many memories. And there's one in particular that I want to share because it is so critically tied to what I think that we're seeing today. When I graduated from high school, it was 1992. Mm-hmm. And for many people, that year doesn't mean very much, except that was the year that Rodney King was brutally beaten in the streets of Los Angeles. Now, I'm in the Bay Area now, but I'm from Southern California. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that is interesting for me to highlight is that while I'm from Southern California, I was about 30 miles outside of LA. So roughly equivalent to how far I live today in East Palo Alto from Oakland. I was 18 years old. I was the valedictorian of my class. And I remember that the newspaper came to interview me. And I was so excited. I thought I had worked so hard. I was ready to tell all of my stories about how I had gotten to that point. And the question that the news asked me was, can you help us understand why your community is so outraged and is tearing up Los Angeles? I'm translating. That was the question that I was asked. Mm-hmm. And so at the age of 18, not having the mental or the emotional maturity to tie a lived experience to sharp enough words that I could actually convey to the newspaper, I remember feeling both let down that I was being asked to answer for all of us, but also smart enough to know that even though I was 30 miles away from Los Angeles and in some ways physically insulated from what was happening, I remember saying, it's because we don't feel heard. At 18. Now, 18 was almost 30 years ago from today. Mm-hmm. And I process frequently that my generation, and I'm saying this aloud because I realize at 46 that I've been processing so much silently. I often think of us as the silent generation, the children who were born of parents who saw the Voting Rights Act signed, the children of parents who lived at a time when King, a peacemaker, was uh, brutally killed,
Mm-hmm.
right? That many of us were taught to just keep our heads down, blend in, make yourself successful, create a better path for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I often ask next generation to be so um, gracious with what they think of as the silent generation, because so much about who we are and how we're shaped is our context, right?
Mm-hmm.
The context in which we were raised, the context in which we were shaped as people. And now I think many of us are saying, well, you know what? We did the right thing. We went out and we got our education. We
Mm-hmm.
went out and we drove impact in large and small ways. And still we realize that even now, race is the great uh, uh, unequalizer in so many
Mm.
ways. There was no right action that we could have taken to make today anything
Nope.
different than it was. And also that the ways that we coach silently into ourselves, with our families, inside of our homes, processing our own pain, is both traumatic and in so many ways ineffective.
Wow.
So there was this moment this week in tech where I got a message from a one of our Korean American employees.
Mm-hmm.
She sent the message not only to me, but I was copied on the message, and she basically said, I am ashamed. I am ashamed that we're not being more vocal in standing out about Black Lives Matter. I'm ashamed that we've made this amorphous statement as a company that doesn't clearly and explicitly denounce hate and all actions associated with discrimination and violence for people, for Black people. I'm ashamed. And after I finished reading her message, I sat there and I sobbed, because
Mm.
I realized that even in my pain, right, that looking at this over and over and over again and processing it the way that I was raised to process it, that
Mm-hmm.
I was robbing the world of hearing my lived experience and robbing us of the ability to collectively tackle it together.
Mm.
And so for me, and I speak for myself. I don't claim to speak for an entire people, but for me, I'm definitely at this point where I'm saying silence is not effective.
Nope.
Processing it alone is not effective. And
Nope.
no, we don't have to be the people who are educating everyone on what they don't know, but we do have to be inviting a broader coalition of people to walk and lock arms with us and to
Mm-hmm.
begin to carry some of these loads that we didn't create.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's nothing about today that we created, but we're subject to it. And we do need a much broader and wider community of allies to help us get through it, because so many of us are traumatized and frankly exhausted, that we need the help of our friends in our broader community to help make this different for the next generation, for ourselves and for the next generation.
Well, one of the things I've realized in this area is that you've been an inspiration to young Black women and young people in general. We've had 2 marches in Palo Alto and East Palo Alto where the young people have asked you to speak at the march. They could have chosen anybody. You know, we got a lot of Stanford speakers and preachers or whatever, but you have cut through the noise with your example. I want you to start talking to the Black professional class and saying to them, what are some tangible steps, or to our generation, mine and your generation, what do they need to do right now besides sit on the couch and respond on Facebook? I need you to start giving us, like, because you've proven it. You came from the disappointment of Hillary losing to being the mayor of a city, to being an example to young lady and men during this time. So you are a model for my generation. Can you give us some tips on how we can get engaged and how people can become engaged?
Well, I think, So thank you for that. That feels so so big, and yet I feel so humbled in hearing those words from you. I I I have a couple of thoughts here. And of course, there's a million thoughts, but I'm going to give a couple.
Mm-hmm.
I want to first give our generation a little bit more permission to be bold and vocal and courageous. It doesn't mean that we necessarily have to be divisive. It doesn't mean that we have to be alienating, but we can vocalize our ideas. So I'll give you an example. My CEO, whom I appreciate on many levels, has
who your CEO is right now, can you?
Yeah. Well, I'll leave his name silent, but I'll share with you the experience. And if you look on LinkedIn, I think you can put the stories together.
Mm-hmm.
So my CEO is a generally good guy, right? Mm-hmm. And as he was watching and experiencing both the killing of George Floyd and the follow-on protest, there was a part of him that was open, like he was wide open and wanting and feeling, perhaps for the first time, that as the CEO of a company, he should say something. Now, this of course was aided by Black employees, many younger employees who were saying it's obnoxious to not say something. But ultimately, he said something. Now, what he said was really interesting. He started with, "This is really terrible." Then he started growing to, "And there are many terrible things that have happened in the world." And then we moved to, so for all of our Black employees and all of our LGBTQ employees, and when he got to his closing remarks, all of the air was out of my body, right? There was this point of strength that was diminished immediately by all of the pylons to try to make it, a message about diversity and inclusion, a broader message about diversity and inclusion. Now, in my 30s, I would have heard that comment or that gesture, and I would have been upset by it, and I would have gone home, and I would have said to my husband, "This thing happened today, and it really bothered me." Mm-hmm. And my husband said, "What a shame! That was a bad thing." And
that's how we've been processing it for years.
Exactly. But this day, I wrote him mm-hmm. a very long letter, and I shared with him the daily decisions that I go through as a Black, the daily experiences and decisions that I'm making actively as a Black executive with a Black husband and Black children in America. And I shared with him 2 things. The first was my 18-year-old experience as the valedictorian in the year that Rodney King was brutally beaten. And the second thing I shared with him was that I even worry about my husband's decision to put on a hoodie, and run through any neighborhood. I worry about that decision. And my husband is a beautiful, calm, super mild-mannered engineer who is very athletic in his build. And I always worry that if we're not all together, that somehow he'll be out there and mistaken for something that someone should be afraid of. And I said to my CEO, I already have a lot to process. I cannot be asked to educate you, as ubiquitous as information is on this topic. Mm-hmm. So I want you to give me some freedom to not be your teacher, but I'm also going to show you some grace, because I recognize that I'm putting on shoes for the first time by saying this, and you're putting on shoes for the first time by speaking as well. But I also said to him, when it comes to this moment, mm-hmm. kill this moment by trying to make it too wide and pile on too many experiences. People are marching in these streets not for the collection of women and LGBTQ and people of color, but people are marching in the streets because George Floyd was the last straw. He was one too many in a long line of brutal beatings, mistreatments, and deaths. And the broader, wider community is saying, enough is enough. We want something different.
Yep.
And when you start piling on so many different things, what you do is give all of us permission to attach to the part of what you're saying that we care about, rather than focusing on this moment together. And so I asked him very respectfully to take everything else out and just focus right here. And I ended my letter, and it was a very gracious letter, but I ended it by saying, in the end, there is only love. So I want you to receive everything that I have said to you in love. I know this is hard for you, and it's hard for me. And I'm going to ask these things in love, but I know when we do it together, we're going to be better for it on the other side. Wow. And you can send a message like that, and it can be career limiting, or it can be career launching, right? And for the last 20 years, my calculation has been that would be a career limiting move, right? But this week, I decided it's time to go in. I'm going to do it respectfully and in love, but it's time to go in. And what I was delightfully surprised by is that my CEO wrote me back within 5 minutes. And he said, Regina, once again, you lead with courage, and you lead with love, and you lead with so much insight that I am benefiting from. After your message, I have decided, upon further reflection, that you are absolutely right. And I completely miscast this, and I'm going to fix it. Please accept my apology, and please know that I'm committed to doing this better with you. And again, for me, this was a 30-year full circle moment, because I've come from, I need to process this pain alone, to I need to process it with you, and I'm going to love you through it, right? There's no need for me to launch a missile or be hateful or be divisive. I didn't have to do any of that. I just needed to share where I was, where my city was, where the broader community was, make some clear asks, and end it with love. And what I found on the other side of that is that he received it as a partner and an ally. So the first thing I want to say is it's a new day. And for our generation, speaking with clarity about what we want in that new day is imperative. We can't shy away from it.
Well,
go ahead.
So I think what you just said is so critical. I'm actually in the middle of a process of putting something together that will be in the paper. That will be some very clear asks from my city, about 6 of them. But I think we need to start making clear asks. And I need to really tell everybody, you are at an executive level. So writing letters like that, when you say career limiting, it's 6-7 figure limiting. It's not $20.
That's right.
So I just really wanted to let you know that there are people out here that are at different tables taking different risks, and we really need to. I know you're speaking Saturday. Can you tell us a little bit about the march on Saturday? I'll see you there. And can you tell us a little bit about what East Palo Alto is doing in this so that we can close out? Because I know you have something with family to do in a little bit.
So a couple of things. I do first want to, you mentioned her name. I want to mention her name publicly and loudly. Miss Alana, who organized our protest in East Palo Alto yesterday. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful protest. And the saddest part of it was that it was at a time when, as Paloma said, I was in a board meeting. There was no way that I could change it. I couldn't shift it. I couldn't change it. The only thing I could do was give her mom and dad my remarks and my blessing. And her mom called me yesterday to say, it was beautiful. We were so blessed, and we were so grateful for your opening prayers that helped to set the stage for the day. Mm-hmm. I will say that as the mayor of East Palo Alto, there is always a little bit of worry in the back of my mind. Not that my residents will be destructive, because we're not built that way, but there was worry that someone from someplace else would try to pile on and make yesterday something more than a peaceful protest demanding different. Like, we want different, right? So that was worrying me in the back of my mind. The pandemic was worrying me in the back of my mind, that we were going to come together and be hugging and share contagion. That was all worrying me. But in the end, I said, what will be, will be. And I was just prayerful and open to a peace and a healing that I know we need in our city, even if I couldn't be there with the family at that time and with the community at that time. Mm-hmm. On Saturday, Allende, who is a student in Palo Alto, contacted me to say, we're doing something similar with Congresswoman Ju and Doris Cordell and my buddy in crime, Julie Lipcott-Haynes. And he asked me if I would join them in another peaceful protest in the city of Palo Alto. The only difference between the two is it's a Saturday, so I'm not working. And it made it really easy for me to say, yes, I can be there with no ambiguity, because as you know, as mayors of small cities, we are also working there. So we have to figure out how we can make our protests happen and also pay our mortgages in between. So on Saturday at noon, we will be convening in Palo Alto, and I'm getting all of my instructions in today for where to be. I'm super, super excited for the moment to speak with one voice, to drive towards an outcome that says enough is enough. We're doing something different, and this is exactly how we're going to do it. And I'm really glad that I'm going to see you there, because you are one that speaks peace and helps to make things calm for all of us, including me. You've always played that role for me, and I'm so grateful for it.
The pastor's supposed to support their members, not stress them out, but support them.
Thank you.
I'm excited about where your future is. As I've always said, I believe that Silicon Valley is better because of your leadership, both in the boardroom and in the council chamber. We will see you Saturday. I want to thank you so much for being with us. I know that you have a graduation parade. Please tell your daughter I said congratulations on the graduation, and we will see you Saturday.
Thank you. See you Saturday with all of my love. Thank you, Pastor Coloma.
You're very welcome. Everybody, that was an amazing conversation with Mayor Regina Wallace Jones. Such great perspective, such great insight, such great clarity. So we're really grateful for all that she does. Join me Monday when I have Ben McBride, one of the nation's leading social justice warriors. He is going to give us the background on things we can do to get involved. Many people just look at the protests, but like the mayor said, there are people that canvass, there are people that reach out, there are people that speak, there are people that are doing a lot of work before we get to this moment. And these are the places that you can get involved. So thank you so much, and see you on Monday for the next Project Conversations. Bye.